Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, how are you doing? Well, in this video, I would like to introduce to you a few basic things that we should know before we start writing a new paragraph. Here, I call it as sentence buildings lesson. And in this lesson, I will explain about three things. The first is sentence definition, the second is sentence structure, and the last is the types of sentence. Okay, let us start from number one, that is sentence definition. Here I have a question for you. That is, what is sentence? It is a collection of words. So for me, a sentence is actually a collection of words, or in other words, we may define a sentence to be a group of words that we use to communicate our ideas, whether it is in writing or in speaking. And how could we recognize that? There are two ways of recognizing it. The first is by a period, if it is in writing form or in writing text. So we may identify the text. If it has period, it means that the words before that, a collection of words before that period is a sentence. And what about in speaking? In speaking, we may recognize it through silence. And for writing, this is my example. We are learning sentence building right now, period. So this is an example of sentence. The second is, when will we recognize, or when will a sentence can be called as a sentence? So to answer that, I provide you with two different boxes over here. The first box on the left is subject or character, and the second box on the right is verb or predicate. And these two boxes will fill a sentence. A sentence should contain at least one subject and one verb. So sentence, once again, I repeat, a sentence will be called as a sentence if it has at least one subject or character plus one verb or predicate. Another examples are here. I play, I learn, I swear, I am. So this group of sentences, they are sentence. So we can say that they are sentence because of what? Because they have subject, that is I, and then they also have predicate or verb, which are play, learn, swear, and then am. And at the end of that sentence, they also have period. And what about this right examples? I play badminton, period. I learned how to write a good sentence, period. I swear to God to be good, period. I am super happy, period. They are also sentence. But these sentences are more informative because of what? Because they have a complement after the verb. Like, I play badminton. So we know as a reader that this person play the object that is badminton. So badminton over here modifies the verb play. And that's also similar to the second example. That is, I learned how to write a good sentence, period. So what we may ask ourselves to recognize whether this is sentence or not, and whether this is a good sentence or not, if we compare it to the first form, I learned, period. Here we can get information that the person learns how to write a good sentence. So what does the speaker learn? We got the answer, that is how to write a good sentence. So these are much better than the first form of sentence. So they have object after the verb here. The next is types of sentence. Here I have four kinds of sentences. The first is simple sentence, the second is compound sentence, the third is complex sentence, And the fourth is compound complex sentence. What are they? Here we will try to explain it one by one to you. But before that, I have some abbreviations in this future explanation. That is IC for independent clause and DC stands for dependent clause. And here for simple sentence should contain at least one IC, that is independent clause. Independent clause is a clause that can stand alone. It can stand alone and it has a complete thought. Here is the example. My students learn writing a simple sentence. I teach and show my students how to write correct sentence. She and her college made a charity program for orphans. And for the second sentence, I teach and show my students how to write correct sentence. Here, we may see that it has two verbs. So the second sentence has two verbs, teach and show. This is called compound verb because there is only one clause and this is still a simple sentence. And the third example, she and her college made a charity program for orphans. So the third sentence has a compound subject. They are she and her college. But it's still a simple sentence because it has only one clause. And the next type of sentence is compound sentence. A compound sentence is two or more independent clauses joined together. And each clause is of equal importance and could stand alone. And there are three ways to join independent clauses to form a compound sentence. The first is compound sentence with coordinator. And the second is compound sentence with conjunctive adverb. And the last is compound sentence with semicolon only. Okay, the first type, that is compound sentence with coordinator. A compound sentence can be formed with independent clause, comma, plus coordinator, plus independent clause. The example is like here. Some people say that grammar is not important in foreign language learning, comma, but others argue that it contributes a lot to language acquisition, period. From this example, we know that it has two clauses express contrasting ideas by the use of but coordinator. Okay, here. The next type of compound sentence is compound sentence with conjunctive adverb. The independent clause of a compound sentence can also be joined by a conjunctive adverb such as rather, however, otherwise, and therefore. But here, I choose to use a conjunctive adverb that is thus. Now let us make a sentence by using this conjunctive adverb. Here I had already had an example, that is, English is not a first language for Indonesian, semicolon, this, comma, learning it is a challenge. The next type is compound sentence with semicolon only. The example here, Zelly, that's my name, Zelly likes cooking, semicolon, her husband likes fishing, period. Here, for compound sentences with semicolons, the dependent clauses in compound sentence may also be joined by a semicolon only. You may see from my sentence. So this is the semicolon only. And this kind of sentence occurs when the two independent clauses are closely related. So you may see over here, the first clause is Zelly likes cooking and the second is her husband likes fishing. And then to join these two sentences, these two ideas, I just need to use semicolon only. Okay, the next type of sentence is complex sentence. complex sentence contains one independent clause and one or more dependent clause. In a complex sentence, one idea is generally more important than the other one, and the more important idea is placed in the independent clause and the less important idea is placed in the dependent clause. The example is here. When I was eating, my mother called me for help. So here the first clause, when I was eating, this is the dependent clause, and my mother called me for help, this is the independent clause. And for a complex sentence, there are three kinds of complex sentence. Dependent clause used in complex sentence. The first is dependent adverb clause. The second is dependent adjective clause. The third is dependent noun clause. Well, a dependent adverb clause is a clause or sentence that does the function of an adverb in the sentence. And there are several kinds of adverb clause. Here on the right side, I provide you with some of the examples of adverb clauses like before, after, until, when, where, though, although, and etc. And my example for this dependent adverb clause is, my father gave me some advices before I decided to pursue my study in the USA. The next type of dependent clause used in complex sentence is dependent adjective clause. A dependent adjective clause is a clause or sentence that does the function of an adjective in the sentence, and the function is to modify or describe the noun. And on the right side, I provide you a box for adjective clauses example, like which, who, that, whose, and etc. And my example for dependent adjective clause is like, the polite and smart man who spoke in that international conference is a Muslim. Period. The next type is dependent noun clause. And for this dependent noun clause, subject or object are used. In other words, a noun clause is used in the same ways as a noun. A noun clause can be formed with question word and then plus subject plus verb plus object or adverb. And here is my example, point A. Where you come from is not a matter for me. So this is as a subject. And the second is, I do not know what this task is for. This is as object. So a dependent noun clause are used. For number one is used as subject, and the second one is used as object. Compound complex sentence. A compound complex sentence, this is the last kind or the last type of sentence that I will explain to you. And it is actually a combination of two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. The example is like here, this. Well everyone, this is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video will be useful and helpful for your study. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Although women can own property, they cannot vote, nor can they be elected to public office. Well everyone, this is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video will be useful and helpful for your study. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.